Hey everyone, welcome back to Tactical Magic Podcast. This is Molly Mandelberg, your host, and I'm here with a special guest today, Lauren Tilden. And I wanted to bring Lauren on because while I love geeking out about marketing and how to grow your business and reach more people, I also know there's probably a lot of you out there who run a business that has more product based than service based offerings. And Lauren knows more about that than I do. And of course, I love marketing. So we're going to geek out on that a little bit too. Hang out for just a second. We'll be right back.
It's not just about mastering technology. It's not just about brand or messaging. It's not just about making more money. It's about showing up in a big way so your people can find you. This is about bringing your most wild and authentic self into the hustle and grind. Welcome to Tactical Magic, a business strategies podcast for the warrior goddess entrepreneur.
Okay, so Lauren Tilden is a small business marketing coach focused on helping small business owners do better marketing so they can make a bigger impact. She spent 8 years in corporate marketing and events before transitioning to running her own small businesses. She started her plant-inspired stationery business, Good Sheila, in 2017 and took over her mom's Seattle retail store, Station 7, in 2019. She believes that with a little bit of heart and intention, any small business can make a difference in the world. Welcome to the show, Lauren.
Thank you so much for having me, Molly. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you too. You've got a lot of different things going on. So first, I want to know what led you to entrepreneurship and how is it going running so many different projects at the same time?
Yes. What led me here? I wasn't one of those people who started selling lemonade when I was 4 years old. I think I always was really motivated in school and I don't know, just envisioned having a good job, whatever that meant. I thought that was just work in a cubicle and make a lot of money. And so I did that. I went to school, studied economics, went to work in marketing for a market research company. And I had about 8-year career there. But by the end, I was so burned out. I was having health problems. I was super stressed. I was filled with dread all the time. And I just quit. I was lucky enough to have a partner who also was working full time. So I didn't have it wasn't I replaced my corporate income and then left. It was I had no plan B and I was not going to do what I was doing anymore. So I did that. I quit in 2017. I had been kind of exploring as kind of a therapy, different art practices, watercolor, calligraphy, and I had learned both of those for my wedding. And so I just decided to start a stationery business a couple of months after quitting my job. I launched it in December 2017, and as of now, it's sold in a bunch of stores around the state of Washington and beyond. I have some other stockist outside of the state. I really focus on wholesale. So that means, for anyone who's not in the product world, that means selling your product to stores or businesses who then will resell it. So that's kind of my focus with Good Sheila. One of my first store was my mom's store, which she owned in Seattle. And I ended up taking that store over from her in 2019. Right before the pandemic. So that's been fun year in retail. And then through both of those businesses, sort of the thread is I've always believed that giving back is a really important thing to do if you can. And that's been built into my businesses from Good Sheila from the start, and now also Station 7, the retail store. So I really like exploring different ways that small businesses can make a positive impact. Sometimes that means donating directly like this. Sometimes it means standing up for what you believe in. Sometimes it means spending your money intentionally and with businesses and practices that align with you. So through all of that, I launched my podcast, Making Good. And so you said, how's it all going? It's a lot. A lot of people on my podcast recommend the book Essentialism, which is about focusing on one thing and you'll go far. And I'm the opposite of an essentialist. I am very compelled. I believe in that argument. I know it makes sense, but I'm so excited about so many different things that I'm making it work. I don't know if I always will. And definitely there are seasons of like, right now the podcast is taking the lead, or right now the store, it's like, for example, the retail store, we're heading into Q4, which is, we do like 30% of our business in December alone. So, there are seasons of ebbs and flows for each one, but I think it's possible to do. It's stressful, but yeah, I couldn't let go of one at this point. So that's where we're at.
Exactly. And I love that as a reminder to folks out there. I think there's one side of that opposite of essentialism, which is shiny object syndrome. And it's like people who start a bunch of things and never follow through. And there's also those of us who out there who some might call a Kabbalist, or some might call, my mentor calls it a DLOS, does lots of stuff. And that there's those of us who just are inspired and who want to create a lot, and it can be demanding of our time. But to be a prolific creator, sometimes we have our hands in many different honeypots, and we want to create magic with lots of different colors and different brush strokes and things like that. So I don't think there's anything wrong with it if it isn't running you dry. And there's, of course, ways to build in practices and habits to let things not run you dry. And imagine running a retail store and another business and having a podcast, that there's got to be some places where either now or at some point in the future, we outsource, we get support, we build a team, we have people who can meet our needs and help support our vision without having to be the one doing all the steps of every project. And that's a huge step in expanding what we're capable of too.
I have a team at the store, so I have a manager, and I'm not even there very often. I'm obviously involved in the business a lot, but that makes it possible for sure. I couldn't be there full time selling things physically and then also doing all these other things.
Yeah.
And I'm just lucky that like that's kind of how the business was running when I bought it from my mom. So it's not something I had to scale up to. It's just like there are full-time staff at the store, and so that is critical. And I do burn myself out, and that's something I am continuously working on, but I'm sure that you're into human design.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm a manifesting generator, which to me is just like, this is how it's going to be. I get lit up by new ideas. Like, I'm excited. I go in the direction of, what kind of has me enthused, and right now it's all of this. So
yeah, and you do what's in front of you until that evolves and change and becomes something new too. But that feedback of when you're burning out and what you need, what you require to bounce back, is valuable insight too. So I know a lot of people listening to this, myself included, because I have products and as parts of my business. Those of us out there who are artists and creatives and people who are creating tangible things, or hobbyists on the side who don't know how their art and their magic could become a business. I'm really curious. I know you said your mom's store was one of them, but how did you start reaching out to other retail locations that you could sell your stationery to wholesale? What was that process like? How does it go?
Yeah. I think wholesale is such a huge opportunity for makers and people who sell products, particularly if the product you sell, like each individual one, doesn't take you tons of time. So for example, if you make hand-thrown pottery, that can be a little bit harder to make the margins work unless your price point is high enough. But for me, I sell greeting cards. I do watercolor and design the first one, and then they get printed, and it's very cost effective that I can sell them at half the price that I retail them. So that's generally for the kinds of businesses that most of us start selling to. You will be selling your product at half of the retail price to the store, and then they sell it for generally the same thing you would sell it for on your website. But they deal with, obviously, they buy a lot up front, and they deal with distributing it to their customers, whether that's in a retail store, online, or whatever. It's a really interesting question. Like, how do you get these wholesale accounts? I have found that as a small business, I start with other small businesses. A lot of small businesses really like buying from makers and local artists and, values-based makers and artists. So I think it's really important not to have a broad brush with it. Like if you're going to be approaching someone to say, I really think you should sell my stuff in your store, do your homework, know what they care about, know what their store is all about, have your outreach be really targeted to them. If you can have a name on it, that would be great. I can't tell you as a store owner how much outreach I get from people who want us to carry their stuff, and they get the name of the store wrong or my name wrong, or like I can tell it's just been copy pasted 500 times to like a bunch of other stores they bought on some list. And that is not, it doesn't make you feel great. It's like, you didn't put any effort into this. And also it just doesn't cause me to like want to put any effort into learning about them and seeing if they're a good fit. I think another way to do this is really just to have good, strong marketing overall. As a store owner, I find a lot of the vendors that we end up taking on, sometimes it's because they reached out to us and introduced themselves to me. Sometimes it's because I found them online and saw that they do wholesale, and I reached out to them. So from that standpoint, I would say, make it obvious that you're open to wholesale, whether that's on your website, having a section for wholesalers to reach out or fill in a form to get more information. A lot of people, even on their Instagram bios, for example, they'll say, we do wholesale or we love wholesale, just kind of signaling that. If you already have a wholesale account, you can, like I always see photos of like their product in a store, and I'm like, oh, that helps me get a vision for like how it might be merchandised or like what it looks like on a shelf, how it's packaged. So if you have any of those sort of sample photos of what it would look like, that's helpful. I would probably start regional, like kind of local. So if you have a store that you already are a regular patron of, like talking to them about it. One other thing I would say is you can consider offering wholesale to start, or sorry, consignment to start out. So consignment is like wholesale, but basically the store wouldn't buy it up front. They would buy it after it sells. So at Station 7, for accounts that we do on consignment, the maker or the artist will bring a bunch of product to the store. We'll track it. We know what we have. And then we do reports every month as it sells. And then we pay them after as it sells. And then there have been times where we bring someone on consignment, it sells really well, and then we buy it wholesale. So you could offer to, say something like, hey, I love your store because this, I think we'd be a really good fit because XYZ about my product. I'm so confident that it would work out that I'd totally be open to selling someone consignment at no upfront cost to you. So just making it really easy for them to say yes, like there's no expense to them, but it's also a numbers game too. Like, just going out there and approaching people and probably getting a lot of no's, probably getting a lot of people not responding. And then you get the one who does, and it pays for all of the time that you used,
right?
Reaching out to everyone. So, and then the one other thing I would say is fair and there's other fair. I don't know if you know fair. This might be a product world thing. Fair is basically like a curated Etsy type thing where stores can buy wholesale. So there's Fair is one, it's FAIRE. There's one called Bulletin. There's one called Abound. There's one called Tundra. I can send you links. But basically as a maker, you would apply to these different, I guess, curated websites.
Yeah.
And then stores go there and they're like, okay, I want candles in Seattle at this price point. They can filter, find new companies, and actually make their orders directly through those sites. The only downside of them is that they take a cut. So if your margins are already really tight, can be hard. But I'm on Fair as Good Sheila, and I've gotten new accounts that way where I never would have come across, like I am in a yoga studio and a gardening center in Montana. I never would have come across these places, but they came across me because I was on the platform. So that would be another thing to consider.
Cool. Really good advice. And I imagine one of the main things I want to highlight out of that is don't take no for an answer. Take no for an answer. If someone says no, don't go back and pester them, but recognize that this is a numbers game that you're going to have to play for a while before it might work. But when it does work, it could be big. So don't let a couple no's squash your dreams of having this wholesale business or this product-based business take off in some way. That you're going to have to be resilient and tenacious and find a way that works for you and do some of the footwork or outreach, like labor, to get those connections, and that will become easier. And as far as the margins being too tight, I mean, as a business owner, just a reminder to everyone, you set your own prices. So if the margin's a little too tight, expand your rate a little bit and see if that works. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And that works well in most product lines. I am in stationery. That's a little hard. Like generally greeting cards are like around $5 to $6 in like independent shops. So if I couldn't make it for a price that made sense, that would be kind of tough.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you make ceramics or jewelry, like there's no one standard price point, and you can really, that's such a great point. Like set the price that is going to pay you what you deserve to be paid for the labor that you're putting in and your experience and expertise and all of those things. So great point.
Yeah, totally. So what are some other like key ideas to keep in mind? I like that point you said about making it clear on your website that you have wholesale prices and how to show up in such a way that the store owner can imagine things on your shelf. Are there other marketing strategies that just come to mind right now that you think people should be aware of or know about?
Yeah, I think wholesale can intimidate people because they feel like, I have no idea how to do it. There's really only a few things that you need to get started. You need to know what your prices are going to be. You need to know there's minimums that you can set. So for example, I have an order minimum of $125 for an opening order. So you can't become a wholesale account and buy like 4 cards. Like that is not worth my while at that price point. So you can set your minimums. You can set minimums per quantity. So you can't buy one of this particular greeting card, for example. You have to buy them in groups of 6. So all of these terms you can set yourself. And then usually stores expect to see something called a line sheet or a catalog, which is a list of everything you sell, what the wholesale price is, any terms around ordering it, different variants. So if it comes in different colors, and then like delivery terms, like how long will it take, things like that. And that can be really simple. Sometimes I receive line sheets from makers and it's 2 pages on a Google sheet with like, it's like a table and they put a photo on one side and some text on the other side. And sometimes it's something that I can tell the person spent a lot of money getting professionally designed. Sometimes people will just send me like their Etsy and it's like wholesale is 50% of the price. Like people start at all levels and it doesn't really matter to me as long as it's really clear to me how I'm ordering. Yeah, I love what you emphasized about mindset and just like, yeah, don't let perfectionism or like one no from someone or feeling not ready, like any of these kind of mindset things are really, in my experience, like what make all the difference between succeeding and kind of stalling in business. You just have to be willing to go for it. Even when it may not feel polished, it may not feel perfect. So I think as long as you're clear when the store that you're approaching knows what the terms are and the prices and the details, and how to order, it doesn't have to be fancy. And yeah, I've ordered from people where the process is, here's a photo of all the individual one-of-a-kind necklaces, circle the ones you want. Like, as long as it's clear, I'll do it if I really want the thing in my store. So yeah, don't let the like, I don't have a fancy system for this yet, stop you. I think from a store standpoint, like we really want to carry things that we know our customers will love. So if you can prove that your customers love your product, or why my customers would like your product by, I don't know, any social proof you have, or if you can share what your best sellers are, like this always sells first, I will definitely use that information as I order. So yeah, I think, just general marketing principles of make it easy for people, make it clear, make it obvious to them what is, what's in it for them. What's in it for them is their customers hopefully will love your product and it'll sell and they'll make money and it'll be a great partnership. So that's why I think it's best for everyone if you approach stores that you genuinely think you're a great fit for, that you fit in with the rest of the merchandise, that the people who shop there would also like your product. Like that's what's going to make them reorder. And that's
the research worth doing. Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah, totally. Yeah. And I like what you said about that. I think people who are out there wondering if they have what it takes, or if, if you're trying to figure out how to create that line sheet or whatever, I'm sure there's plenty that you could go and Google. Also go and look at other websites that maybe have wholesale accounts and see if you could download other people's. I just want to mention canva.com is a really great resource where you could on your own come up with a pretty version of a line sheet. They probably even have a template you can use. Also, Fiverr, Fiverr.com. If you want to make something look more professional, there's hundreds and thousands of graphic designers on there that will take your ugly spreadsheet and make it into something that makes sense. But I like what you said is the most important thing. Make it really clear, first off, that you've done your research on the shop, that you will make sense for them, and that how exactly to order your products, what the steps are to take to connect with you, make that as easy as possible. And I also want to just mention what social proof is, what you mean by that. If people are rating or reviewing your stuff on Etsy, if people are sending you emails thanking you for that stuff, screenshot it, categorize that, put a file folder somewhere on your hard drive or Dropbox or whatever, where you're keeping those praise things somewhere, so that when people want to know, like, you send those with it. That sharing client testimonials, sharing client reviews, customer reviews is a great way to show that you have a business people love and a business that people actually love the products from. And that includes tracking what sells and what doesn't sell, like having a process for yourself to know that this is your best seller. If you don't have a way of tracking that already, set up some way of tracking that so that you know where to focus more of your energy to create more of that product specifically, or create more iterations of that version of a thing, because that information is going to help you be more successful in the future. And you're the only one who can really do that background tracking work.
Yeah. And I think, again, even if you say like someone on Fiverr can turn your ugly spreadsheet into a catalog, you can send the ugly spreadsheet though. Like,
okay.
If that's going to stop you, just send the ugly spreadsheet as long as there's a photo and it's clear. Really, for me, I think one thing I didn't mention is product photography. So making sure that the photos of your product are good enough to kind of show it in the right light. Like, again, if you can show photos of what it looks like on a shelf or how the store might merchandise it, that is helpful. But just, you can take good product photos yourself. And I'm not a pro at this, but I have done it. I think it's just something to focus on, like have bright light and not a lot of distraction in the background, and, let the product, I don't know, speak for itself, take the right photos of it. Like you'd be surprised how bad some of the things we get, like how, I don't want to say bad, but just like photos that do not do the product any justice. And then if you actually see an example of it, you're like, this is gorgeous and it would sell so well. But like from the image I saw initially, I would have never known that. So make sure you're kind of presenting it in the best light in that way.
Yeah. And there are dozens of YouTube videos on how to product photo shoot. So don't stop you either. Your existing phone is likely good enough to take
100%
awesome pictures if you set it up right. And I will say from my beginnings as trying to studio light myself for videos for my business, you can get an $8 clamp light at Home Depot that does wonders for professional photo shoot lighting. So it's not expensive.
Good tip.
Good. Tell us about your podcast. We've got a couple minutes left. I want people to know that they should go and listen to your podcast and what it's all about.
Yeah. So my podcast is called Making Good. And it's really at the intersection of marketing, mindset, and doing good through small business. So it's not specifically for product-based businesses, although I have had, like, for example, I did an episode on Wholesale, which anyone interested in Wholesale should totally check out. Let me see what number it is. Number 23. But it's not specific for product-based businesses. It's just kind of all things, how do you communicate the value of what you have to sell? How do you get your mindset in a place where it's serving you and not holding you back? And then just really exploring all the different ways that small businesses are really powerful, I think, members of our world and community, and different ways that we can really get intentional, and no matter what size your business is, use it to make a positive impact in some way. So yeah, I would love to have anyone over there listening. And yeah, thank you so much, Molly, for having me. This has been fun.
Yeah, I'm so grateful to have a different perspective, and hopefully this helps some people out there who are trying to market a product-based business. I know this is super valuable for me to listen to. And yeah, I have an Oracle deck that I've been wanting to get into stores because I think that would be a fun way to just have more people see.
Chat.
Yeah. So we should. Okay, great. Well, now we're going to chat about that. I love it. But yeah, one of the last things I like to ask this question at the end, if there's any last words of wisdom that you want to share with people before we sign off.
I think for me, what has always been the biggest game changer has been my mindset. In the beginning of my business, I wanted to buy all the courses and get all the Instagram strategies and see other people's templates for things. And that really is not what has ever made the difference. The difference has always been made by being willing to do things outside of my comfort zone, not being afraid to start when I'm, scared of something or don't feel ready for it. And just kind of, like leaning into discomfort as a sign that I might be on the right track and pushing myself to something bigger and better. That has been what has made the difference for me. Never the tactics and strategies matter. Like, we need to know what we're doing, but they're not like the macro level changes in your business. That's always going to be from like getting your mind right and spending the time to invest on that. And I know it's something you're big on too. So
Definitely.
I'm sure you agree with that.
Doing. Absolutely. I think that's really good advice. And whatever strategy you're trying, there has to be somewhere in you that you believe it, or that you're willing to keep trying and creating and looking at new possibilities if it proves to not work out. But really good advice. And are you on Instagram? Where should people follow you?
Yeah. So I'm on Instagram at Lauren Tilden. And from there, it links to my store and the stationery business if you want to learn more about those.
Awesome. And we'll put the link in the show notes to get to your website and to your podcast, which I'm sure is on there too. And thank you so much for being on the show. And thank you everyone out there for listening. Whatever happens, keep asking big questions and taking bold action, because you are here for a reason. Bye.
Bye.